Jake Reed here. Today, I'm going to show you how to get big, huge, Bonham-esque, huge, John Bonham, huge drum sounds in your tiny room. I mean, not your room. I mean, in my room. Oh my God. How I get huge sounding drums. No, huge drum sounds. Huge drum sounds. Say it. Huge drum sounds. So I just want to have a disclaimer here first that I'm just a drummer. I'm not a recording engineer. I'm not a mixing guy. Most of the stuff I figured out by asking my friends who happen to be engineers and, mixing dudes. They know a lot more about the technical side of things than I do. This is just stuff I figured out through trial and error. Mess around with stuff. Figure out what works for you. Everyone's room is different, right? No two rooms sound alike. And the thing with drums is that it's all about the sound of the room that you're in, right? Talk about these legendary studios, Ocean Way, East West, Capitol. Those studios are known for their room sounds. And the thing is, most home studios don't have that sort of space. So how can we find our own way of getting close to that? How can we get big sounding, big rockin' drums like John Bonham-esque sounding drums in our little rooms? Figure out where your drums sound best in your room and set up your drums in that part of the room. Figure out what miking techniques work best for you. Everyone is different. Every room is different. Everyone hits a drum differently. I have no idea what drums John Bonham used on When the Levee Breaks. All I know is they sound amazing and they inspire me to want to get that big of a sound too. I guess the main thing I'm trying to say is you have to figure out how to use your space and also use the tools that you have available to you. There's no right or wrong way to do any of this. But first, don't forget to smash that like button and hit subscribe. Did you ever see that Muppets bit where Buddy Rich comes out and he's hitting he's got drumsticks and he's just kind of going around hitting stuff. And one of the Muppets comes up to him and he goes, Buddy, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm playing the room. And of course, that's the joke. You have to play whatever space you're in. So in this room, for this sound, 90% of it has to do with how I'm hitting the drums. And I totally just made up that statistic. It's probably, 95%, 87%, I don't know. And this is just pure physics. The harder you hit a drum, the more attack it's going to get, the less tone after a certain threshold, right? So you have to find that balance where you're getting a big tone without hitting the drum super hard. Relaxation is key. All right, just to kind of give you a reference point, here's what the drums sound like in the room just with the iPhone mic. We're getting a lot of natural sound just from the drums being tuned wide open. And that's going to really help when I end up compressing everything with the room mics later on. The other thing to keep in mind that is really going to help out is the more I compress the room mics, the louder the cymbals are going to get. And that can really take over a mix. We just basically want to compress the room mics to give it this pumping feel. You're not getting bored yet, are you? This feeling that we're in a bigger room than we're really in. So the main thing is we want to get a lot of the drums doing that. And not so much of the cymbals. Like I said before, most of the reason I'm able to get a huge drum sound in this small room, as you can see, it is pretty small, is because how I have the drums tuned and the cymbal choices. Crash of Doom, 22 K-Con, medium, thin, low, 20-inch Carope, 17-inch Crash, K-Con on top, on bottom, 17-inch suspended cymbal. Big, washy, dark cymbals, In terms of mic placement, we're used to putting kick drum mics super close up on the bass drum, right? In this case, I don't have a hole in the head, and if I put the mics too close, it's probably gonna not really get the desired sound. And we want a lot of body to the kick sound. Not all beaters sound like heavy metal. We're going for big, beefy, huge, I don't know how far that is, maybe 18 inches or so, maybe 16. We have an Indy 868 Neumann U47 Fat reissue. Just a coated ambassador on the front there. No big deal. C414s, VULS's on the toms. Boom. Boom. You're not getting bored yet, are you? Overhead mics, Coles 4038, DPA 4011s. Good. Here's my room pair right here. These overhead mics are about 36 inches from the snare head. Boop, boop. Okay. Now, keep in mind the rule of three. The rule of three. Try this at home when you get a chance. The rule of three. Rule of three. The rule of three. 3. I'm measuring 3 times the distance from my overheads to the snare, which is 36 inches, times 3, and that's how far away I'm putting the room mics. This one's going through some guitar pedals right over there. Super nerd moment here, just for a second. Let's talk about gear. The kick dynamic mic was going through this BAE, which was then going through this DBX 160, barely hitting it. You can see how far up I have the threshold. Not much really going on there. Snare top, Neve, mono overhead, Neve, which was then going through this compressor. Not really hitting it that hard again. Just kind of getting some extra smack going there. Toms were going through these JLM TG500s, Neve style, beefy, pre's. Had the overheads going through these 512s. Nice and crispy. All right, had my two AEA N8s going through these RPQ 500s, which are AEA preamps. These are designed to have lots of clean gain for ribbon mics. I had the pedals going through this Manley Tube preamp. Cool. Okay, so I just want to go over some mixing stuff here. Here's what it sounds like. Everything. First, I'm just going to start by turning off all the plugins that are happening. That's what the kick drum sounds like by itself. And now, I got it going through this distressor. There's without it. Solo snare, no compression. That's with the compression. I don't know, I just picked those settings because it sounded best. Just adding that extra smack. Here's the solo mono overhead. Check it out. Adding a lot of smack for sure. A little bit of EQ. Overheads. The distressor. In my rooms. It's all about balancing yourself at the kit. 90% of the sound is from the drums. It's not plugins. This is what the drums sound like in the room. And what I'm doing is I'm using an expander. This is the FabFilter multi-band compressor. Kind of boosts some of the toms and the beefiness of the kick. And I'm compressing the high end of the cymbals just to bring that stuff down. In terms of EQ, just taking out some of the weird frequencies of my particular room. And then adding some top end to the sound just to make it have that sizzle. And again, I have no idea if this is right or wrong. This is just how I do it. And I'm sure there are 10 other engineers who would be like, I'm sure Andrew Masters would be like, yeah, you're doing it completely wrong. So here's rooms, overheads, kick in, snare top. That's it. I should say there is some sorcery going on, and that's this Mojave MA1000. I got this from Aaron Sterling. Shout out to Aaron Sterling. Woo! I got this going through an Echo Rec pedal and a Strymon Blue Sky reverb pedal. It gives it that Bonham-esque echo, right? Because I don't have a stairwell. They had a stairwell. They put mics in a stairwell. So I'm just making something up. I got a mono room mic, a couple guitar pedals. I don't have a stairwell. And the last thing is on this drum bus here. I got everything going through this API bus compressor. Now let's turn it on. In terms of reverb, I got this Valhalla room verb. Just like, it's like a room plugin. And I don't even have it really hitting super hard. Valhalla vintage verb. These are like the cheapest reverb plugins. They're like $50 a piece. I just have it going through this plate, mainly the room and some overhead. Mono overhead and a little bit on the snare. But that's it. So, there you have it. That's how I get big, huge sounding drums in my small room. Please comment. I want to know if anything I've said today has helped you in any way. All right, see you next time.